Hi, Lemi's Korea from Pilates First. This video is an introduction to Pilates. Maybe you're keen on starting but not quite sure where to start or what the basic principles are, or you've been doing Pilates for years and you just need a little bit of a reminder of what you were first taught. What makes Pilates unique to me personally is the focus and the mind-body connection. Pilates is known as the intelligent exercise, and there is good reason for that. There's also a constant flow and rhythm which leaves no room for your mind to drift or wander. If you train with a really good instructor, another important factor is they cue exactly which muscles should contract at exactly the right time in coordination with your breathing. It is simply incredible and most often yields great results. Stay with me as I will demo the basic setup while lying on your back and explaining which muscles you should think of while breathing and how exactly to breathe throughout the session. So, meeting you on your mat, I'm going to go through the basics of setting yourself up on your mat. In Pilates, we spend most of our time lying on our back, so it will be quite clear to understand what the basics are. Where should my hands be? Where should my feet be? How should my neck be? So, lying on your back, firstly, we have our feet just about hip width apart. You don't want it too wide apart. Obviously, it depends on the exercise and the goal of the exercise. But generally speaking, you want your feet about hip width apart. Your feet shouldn't be too close to your glutes because that creates quite a stretch in your quads. And if your feet are too far away, your hamstrings have to grip quite a bit. So just about a foot length away between your glute and your heel, keeping the feet hip width. Then your arms just relax next to your side. At Pilates First, we encourage you to turn your palms open because we spend most of our days turning our palms in, rotating our shoulders in. It causes quite a bit of tension in our pecs and our neck and our thoracic spine. So while we're exercising with good movement, why not turn your palms open and get those shoulders relaxed? You can have your arms just a little bit away from your side. If it's too close, you really restrict the movement through your spine and the shoulders. So a little bit away from your side, and then get the feeling of drawing your shoulders a little bit away from the ears. Not pulling it, we don't want to create tension unnecessarily. Just draw your shoulders lightly down and then relaxing the arms. Lastly, your head and neck position. This is something that has gone quite in the wrong direction over the last few years just because of we're using our cell phone so much. Try not to lie with your chin sticking out. That again creates unnecessary tension in the back of the neck. Your chin is just drawn in slightly. Feel like you're creating length at the back of your neck. If this is really difficult for you because maybe you're tight in your neck or in your shoulders, you can put a little pillow under your head just to help you create less tension in the neck. So the arms relax, the shoulders relax, and then your feet are hip width apart, your feet and your knees. That should also be in alignment. Then we go to our pelvic tilts. So the nicest thing about Pilates is we work in different pelvic tilts, which contributes to that mind-body connection. So if you're lying on your mat, I'm just going to have my hands above here so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Tuck your pelvis through, so push your lower back as flat as you can into the mat. That is a posterior pelvic tilt. Yeah? Then we can make a big arch under the back, so there's actually quite a big space under my lower back. That's an anterior pelvic tilt. So what we want to do is find the middle of the two. We don't want to tuck our pelvis through too much, and we don't want to have an extreme arch in the back. Again, it obviously depends on the exercise your instructor is teaching you. But in a neutral pelvis, we want to try and work in a neutral pelvis so that we can isolate into different muscle groups without compensating in others. So let's just go through that again. So you can tuck your pelvis through. Your back goes flat into the mat, completely flat. Make an arch in your back. That's an anterior tilt. Then you want to find the middle of the two. So we're not arching and we're not tucking. Another way of understanding this is if I had to put a glass on my pelvis, if I had to tuck my pelvis, that glass would fall towards me. If I have to arch my back, that glass would fall away. So we want to find the middle where we just keep it nice and balanced. Then you'd be in your neutral pelvis. In a neutral pelvis as well, what it helps with is to actually get sufficient work in your abdominals and your back extensors. So a bit of both is working. When we tuck our pelvis through the whole time, our lumbar back extensors actually relax and our abs really shorten in the front. When we arch our back and make a big space, our lumbar spine overworks your lower back, and your abdominals actually let go slightly because they're so lengthened. So really try and get into that neutral pelvis. Keep in mind as well, a neutral pelvis will be different for everybody. Some gaps might be bigger, some might be a little bit smaller. You've got to find your neutral pelvis. Then we got to focus on the muscles that actually work while we breathe. So this is just breathing muscles. This is not even moving muscles. So that's again why this Pilates is such an intelligent movement, because there's so much working together, so much you got to think about. Firstly, we contract our pelvic floor when we breathe. So our pelvic floor is our deepest pelvis muscles, or pelvic floor muscles. If you want to think about it in an easier way, it is literally if you go to the bathroom and you stop your urine halfway, that's your pelvic floor. You want to close the front hole and the back hole. I know it sounds very weird, but that's pretty much your pelvic floor. Then we work with our transverse abdominis. So our transverse abdominis is your deepest abdominal muscle. Obviously, Pilates is mostly about getting stable in your core. People like to call it your core. I don't really like that word, but everyone can relate to it, so we'll use it for this. So that would be the middle part of your body. So your transverse abdominis is your deepest core muscle. So why not understand where that is? It is a muscle that runs all the way from your spine and goes around, it wraps around the body like a corset, so all the way around. So how do we contract this muscle while we're breathing? You got to think of drawing your abdominals or your belly button towards your spine, narrowing your waistline, and then flattening your abdominals, but without squishing your back flat or arching it. So we literally stay in a neutral pelvis, and it's that feeling of drawing your abs in. So if you push your stomach out all the way, now pull it in and flatten your abs as much as you can without changing the pelvis. You can push the stomach out again as much as you can, and then flatten the abs, narrow the waistline. That's your transverse abdominis. This muscle doesn't take a lot of effort to contract. It's about 30% of effort. It's not like a bicep where you got to contract your bicep. It literally just requires good breathing. Lastly, in Pilates, we breathe with our ribs. So you want to get the feeling of expanding your ribs out to the side and then bringing your ribs back in. So I'll explain this one seated. You can do this one sitting as well. Nice and tall in your spine. We don't want to sit like this. If we sit with a bit of a slouch, it's far more difficult to breathe because you actually don't have space in the front of your chest or in your ribs. So sit up nice and tall. You can put your hands on your ribs. Interlace your fingers there. Try and keep your shoulders and your neck fairly relaxed. We take an inhale. As we exhale, bring your ribs closer together. So the feeling is we expand your ribs out to the side, and then we bring your ribs closer to one another. So in our everyday lives, we tend to actually breathe quite a lot in our neck and just up top here, and actually breathe deeper. In yoga, they encourage you to breathe with your belly button, which also is great and has its benefits. So they encourage you to breathe with your stomach. Pilates, we want to breathe with our ribs by expanding it out to the side and bringing it back in. The reason being, we can still keep our core stable and our abs holding on while we're breathing. So our belly button doesn't move in and out. Our ribs expand and our ribs come back together. So let's try that again. Sitting up tall, take an inhale. And as you exhale, feel like you're bringing your ribs closer together. Watch that you don't create any unnecessary tension in your neck and your shoulders. So taking an inhale, try and expand the ribs out to the side. And as you exhale, bringing the ribs closer together. So with those three things, with regards to breathing, we contract our pelvic floor, transverse abdominis, then we close our ribs last. So let's try that on the mat. So we have our basic setup. We have our feet hip width, we have our arms relaxed, and then we're in that neutral pelvis. Not squishing your back, not arching it, just in the middle. Now, as we take an inhale, you want to expand your ribs out to the side. As you exhale, contract the pelvic floor, flatten the abs, close the ribs last. So I'll do one with you. Take an inhale. The feeling with the pelvic floor as well you want to get the feeling of drawing it in and up, not pushing the air down and out. So take an inhale again, expand the ribs out to the side, and as you exhale, pelvic floor draws up, transverse abdominis flattens, ribs close last. So you want to try and breathe in that order. It is quite a difficult thing to breathe like this, but with more practice, you'll definitely get much better. With every single exercise in Pilates, doesn't matter if you're moving your leg, moving your arms, doing abdominal work, that's the breathing pattern you want to keep in mind unless your instructor tells you otherwise. So it can be quite tricky, but with practice and time, it will get better. I hope this video helps you. Remember, if you have any questions, leave a comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video. That will be great.